Welcome to West Virginia Beer Roads, a podcast all about beer from a West Virginia perspective. I'm Erin McCoy here with my podcast partner, Charles Backway.
What we're going to be talking about today is among the coolest things about craft beer. And no, it's not about the quality of the beer. No, it's not about some hot new beer style. What it's about is the graphic art on beer can labels. To my eyes, the proliferation of beer can art is certainly one of the sweetest accomplishments of the contemporary craft beer era. On store shelves all across America, you see it. And not to be left out, West Virginia breweries are doing their part to advance the field. The first West Virginia brewery to break through with really distinctive can art was Greenbrier Valley Brewing. Their Myths and Legends series with images like the Mothman and Devil Anse Hatfield really set a high bar for can design, and they're keeping it going today. But we also have a number of other breweries that are now making their mark. And we're seeing locally canned beer pop up all across the state with cool labels. So Erin, we have two guests today who've been instrumental in getting high-level, beautiful, stunning labels on their beer cans.
Yes, we do. And I absolutely love this topic. First, we have the label meister at Big Timber Brewing Company in Elkins, West Virginia. And she's responsible for all the lovely cans that we're seeing from them. Amber Kwasniewski, welcome to West Virginia Beer Roads.
Thank you, Erin and Charles. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Great. Can you tell me a little bit about your role at Big Timber?
I do a lot of the graphic work, a lot of the design work. My background is in interior design. So I've actually done like our tap room design, the brewery layouts and drawings. I've obviously got a whole team of people to help consult on that, including my brother and my other business partners. So yeah, so and then anything and everything that has our logo on it, our graphics, and of course the beer cans. So.
Great. So I believe you might have a beer there. Can you tell us what it is?
Let me crack it open.
Oh, yeah.
It's our cherry vanilla goza. So it's one of our small batch sours, kettle sours.
I have one of those in my fridge. Cheers. Okay, next we've got one of the state's first freelance artists to achieve success in getting his super creative graphic art used at a local small brewery. Now he's busy putting art with an attitude on beer cans in two parts of the state. Brian Pickens, welcome to West Virginia Beer Roads.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
We're happy to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about your graphic arts business?
I'm kind of I don't even know how to phrase it. I've worked 9 to 5 as a graphic designer. I also do a lot of freelance design. I also run an apparel company called Made in West Virginia.
Nice.
I also paint murals. I don't know. I do a bunch of stuff.
Broad, very broad. That's good. That's great.
Jack of all trades, kind of dipping my toes and all over the place.
Okay. And I believe you maybe have a beer with you as well.
I do.
You'd like to share that with us?
I do. I have a delicious beer here. This is actually the brand new release from Chestnut Brew Works. This is the Chico's 2-game win streak. This is the German style Kolsch. And it's delicious. I've already had quite a bit, as you can see from my glass.
All right, I don't want to be left out either. So I've got this Pawpaw Pride from Weathered Ground, which label art done by a West Virginia illustrator. And Rosalie Hazlett, yeah, that's who did that. I know we're going to probably talk a little about her later. But anyway, I'm going to try this.
Wait.
I'm going to open my beer. That's all. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Erin, your turn.
I cheated. I've opened my beer, but here is what I have.
Oh, wow. I regret triple.
Thanks for representing, Erin.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite labels. So
awesome.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yep. Cheers, folks. All right. let's get over into the business aspects of beer can labels. Amber, I'm curious why you decided as a brewery, or why Big Timber decided as a brewery to put so much energy and emphasis on beer can labels, and what was your original thinking on that?
Well, originally we wanted to can really just to get our product out there. The idea was to make it available everywhere in the state. And a big part of that is getting it into the hands of West Virginians and visitors. So we toyed around with different packaging containers, but we've always been kind of recreation focused and going down to the river and going swimming. So we didn't want to put it in glass because of a big part of it is just finding glass on the river and stuff. So we thought cans are much friendlier. Backpacking and stuff wise, it's lighter. So, and they are good containers for beer at the same time. So we really kind of dove into can design or canning for that purpose. And then of course that brings up can design, and I'm a trained interior designer and a self-taught graphic designer. So because of my background in design, I got the opportunity to see what I could do with.
I might throw in here I think you're also a part owner or co-owner in the brewery.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're in the family with
Yes.
your brother and his family.
Yeah, my brother, my sister-in-law, Ashley. So my brother's Matt Kwasniewski, he's the head brewer, president. My sister-in-law is Ashley Kwasniewski, his wife and taproom manager. And then our other business partner is Sam Mosey, and he does our distribution management. Yeah,
and it was fortunate, really, that within the family, you guys had someone with design background, and that got you started. I know you fill me in though. That did you do all the first labels for the original cans that came out?
Yes. So I've done a lot of them. I think we have 21 out in the market right now, or throughout the years we've had 20 some cans designed and out on shelves, and I've done a majority of them, but I really enjoy partnering with local artists, which we've started doing to really kind of push the creativity, and they've got more talent than I do, so it's a lot of fun to see what they can do with the beer can. So
yeah, I guess before we get into some more specifics about individual projects or cans and artists, but I'm just curious, it's how you see that progression, because your flagship brands, your IPA and Porter, yeah, a couple others. Anyway, I have some photos of those, but what I'm just thinking is those were a little more standard design, and then as you've moved, things have progressed. For small batch beers have not had small batch labels; they've had flourishing labels. It just seems like it's gone from the ones that are in big distribution are more standard, but the ones that are very limited, you've put a lot of energy and probably resources into fancy labels on beers with small distribution. I guess I'm curious about how is that paying off? I mean, what's that thinking like?
Yeah, I mean, we're a community focused brewery, so we've actually had the artists kind of approach us about doing a beer can for us. So it's great. And it really kind of gives them a new medium to work with almost. So like, I enjoy art. That's my hobby kind of on the side. So I paint, I dabble in that. So going from a canvas or kind of a 2D surface to a 3-dimensional medium that is shiny, metallic, it's a different opportunity to kind of push your artistic boundaries. And with our flagship beers and kind of our core brand beers, we wanted them to be recognizable. So if you see a lineup of those beers, you'll see that they have similar logo placement, usually a couple colors per can. And most of those are printed on the metal. So there are 3 different
yeah, we'll get into that.
in which
We'll get into that. Yeah, all the different styles of printing later, but like
there are several options to how you make these labels too. So with our core brands, those we need to order in much larger quantities. So just financially, it makes sense to have them printed versus wrapped. And then when you get into those printed cans, you have a lot more constraints when it comes to design.
So what I'm hearing you say is that on the large volume cans, the flagship brands that are out in wide distribution, those cans, you want them all recognizable that look like a family. Is that kind of what I'm hearing? So they have a consistency about their design qualities.
Yeah, because if you think about it, when you go into a store and you see the beer on the shelves, a lot of times stores organize it by company.
Sure.
So you'll see our beers lined up typically right next to each other. So to get a nice, consistent almost look, so when somebody sees one of them, they kind of know it's Big Timber before they even get up close and read the label. So the idea was to make it recognizable, shelved, and then of course, when we started doing the small batches and started packaging those,
so there's really
I get a little bit more artistic license.
2 different objectives in a sense, with the 2 different sides of the brewing product. Yeah, okay. Erin, go ahead.
Brian, as a freelance artist, talk a little bit about how you first got started working with Chestnut Brew Works in Morgantown, as in who initiated the idea of doing artwork for the brewery.
I remember exactly how I got started. I remember the day and all. I had a kegerator in my house, and I had been getting local beers, and Bill had just started, Bill Rittenauer from Chestnut had kind of just started delivering beer to restaurants and places like that. And I kind of randomly got a hold of him, and I was like, hey man, could I get a sixtel of some of that sweet Halleck you got up there? And he was like, yeah, of course. And I met him in the Black Bear Evansdale parking lot. Where he was dropping off kegs. And I can't remember exactly how this goes. I might have been wearing one of my shirts, and he was like, I think he might have said like, hey man, nice shirt. And I was like, oh, I make these shirts. And then he was like, oh, you do the art? And I was like, yeah, man, I'd love to do some art for you. And I gave him some stickers, and we've been BFFs ever since.
Well,
it's been great.
All right. So when did you then first know that you were onto something wonderful?
Oh, the second that I tasted his beer, I was like, I gotta latch on to this dude.
I mean, in terms of your graphics art business that you have, and
I don't know. I've been doing it for so long. I mean, I started doing graphic design when I was 15. I started at a sign shop in Weston, West Virginia, where I'm from. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've always been an artist. I've been drawing, I don't know. I guess the first time that I felt, at least specifically to these beer label things, I don't know. It might have been just hanging out in Chestnut one night and seeing people buy posters of the labels.
Oh, nice.
And wasn't that sort of, Brian, one of the things you started with were those big posters that are still hanging up, I think, at the brewery.
Oh yeah, the West Virginia breweries posters. Yeah, yeah.
But I just mean also for Chestnut,
and they
put together those specific. They were like labels, but they weren't doing a lot of packaged beer at that time.
No, they weren't.
So they weren't can labels. They were graphics, though, that kind of you tell that like just captured the brand.
It's a big old poster of the label that we had.
Yeah, and we'll have probably put one of those pieces of art at least up so people can see that too.
Yeah.
Sure.
But when I saw people buying those, and then Bill, of course, like, well, that guy did the art. And they're like, "Oh my God, will you sign it?" I was like, "Oh, okay."
Oh,
I
yeah.
was like, this might be,
Very nice.
this is kind of cool.
All right.
And
Well,
people just being like, "This is my favorite art," and I'm like, "Well, cool. That's awesome."
that is awesome.
Kind of weird.
And now you're also working with Abolitionist Ale Works in
Mhm.
Charlestown.
Mhm.
So how did that get started?
I knew Mike he worked for a while at the Morgantown Brewing Company, and just kind of knew him tangentially through that, and had hung out with him at several kind of beer festivals. The Rails and Ales in Huntington in particular is one that I remember having a really good time with him at. And he just kind of got a hold of me online and was like, "Hey man, do you want to start throwing some of these together?" And I'm not gonna. I like Mike a lot, which is why I was like, okay. And I also approached it as like, well, if I'm gonna do labels for Abolitionist, I have to do them differently than I do for Chestnut.
We're going to sort of dive into that a bit further.
Right. But I mean, we're just buds, and he just kind of hit me up online, and that's kind of how almost all my stuff goes.
Yeah,
cool.
for our audience, Mike is the head brewer and also I think a business partner in Abolitionist Brewery.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, well, let's talk about some specifics of can designs. I mean, Amber, like we were saying earlier, we've seen a kind of a progression of Big Timber can art. I mean, the art, even on your flagships, has evolved since the beginning. I believe.
Found examples if you want to see them.
Oh, yeah, I love to see them. But could you talk about that evolution in those design parameters that you did?
Sure. So first time I'm designing a beer can, it was, you think about it again, like 2D surface going to a 3-dimensional surface, going to a metallic surface. So you get a template from the can manufacturer typically, or the company that's providing the either wrapped cans or printed cans. And I'll use the IPA as an example because I have the proof from the very first IPA can that we did.
Very cool.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's awesome.
The intent was that this would be bark, but
it looks like bark.
Once it was in the 3D form, though, people thought it was camouflage. So it was kind of like, that's what we're going for.
Well, like mossy oak, like
camouflage,
yeah,
right?
Like appealed to like the hunting population,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean, and then it got a little close to. Some people were thinking it was an energy drink, like when they first saw it on a shelf. So then we decided, well, maybe we should take it a different route. But we didn't want to completely remove ourselves from the cans that were already on shelves because you don't want to kind of lose customers because they can't recognize you. So this was iteration number 2.
Solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was where
I remember when that change happened. Yeah.
Started incorporating the bigger kind of color block. So then when they are on a shelf, you kind of see that color from a distance and then get closer to it. So we kept some of the bark on the top to, again, tie it back to the first version. And then the third version was this one. So this is where I don't think you can even see it. We started putting the wallpaper behind and we did the tree line. But the shapes, but because the color green we used, the viscosity of the ink on the metal didn't allow to get the outlines very clear. So working with their graphics team, they told me, you got to increase this by like 2 millimeters. And I mean, so it was back and forth. And then our current and fourth version is this one. You can see the wallpapered images a little better. So it is a learning process. And you see what's successful and you see what's not, and then you can change it on the next version. So
yeah, I think
kind of what happened.
I mean, if you're not involved in this graphic arts world, like I'm not, You don't realize how complex and all the little issues that you have to deal with to get a label to look right on a can and to get what you want as it's printed and all that. I'm sure there's just so much to it that both of you guys have to deal with. But I want to flow on over there, Amber, to Big Timber's small batch specialty beer program that's afforded you the opportunity to reach out to other artists in your community. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So when we were doing the small batch and we didn't have to order a tractor trailer load of cans at a time, my business partners said, you could probably have a little more artistic license on these kind of, we know you want to be creative, so have fun. And the first one we did was Overcast. I have an example of it here.
Yeah.
I love that label.
So that was fun. And that's actually a picture of the view from my family's farm. So it's
Awesome.
I have a story for all these cans, but regarding the collaborative cans that we've done on some small batches with some local artists. So we've worked with Rosalie, who you mentioned earlier when you were showing your beer, Charles. Rosalie Hazlett, she approached us actually because she was working on, she's a watercolor artist. That's her primary medium, I should say.
Right.
But she was working on a trail map for the 100th anniversary of the Monongahela National Forest. And she was like, I would love to partner with you guys because you're in Elkins. That's where the National Forest headquarters are. And they want to do, they're, kind of working with her. And unfortunately this year, a lot of the celebrations for that got canceled. But thankfully we have those parks so we can enjoy them.
Yeah, and so I guess, did that poster which you show on your label, that poster was done for the Park Service, right?
Yes.
In full size. I mean, it's a regular poster, yeah.
Yeah, it's I think the original size or the final size is like 30 by 24 or something. It was a large scale artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so she made it much smaller for us. It was so think about it, portrait format. So we had to turn it horizontally on the can.
Yeah.
Wow.
So again,
Brilliantly done.
working with her. So she sent me the final image of the map, the trail map. I put it on the template for the wrap, included the beer description you see here.
Yep.
And logo and everything. And she it's great to collaborate with artists because she was looking at it and I had a different font and she was like, it'd look really good. She actually made a font out of her handwriting that she uses on the trail map. I don't think you can see it on here, but if you have one of our cans, so she made a font and she actually shared the font with me. So I changed over the description using her font. So it actually looks much more cohesive between the map and the description. So it was great working with her on that. And then the other artist we've worked with is Mike Doig.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. I have heard that from you and your brother, and tell a little bit about that one.
So Mike Doig's a good family friend, awesome artist. He was the head of the art program at Davis and Elkins College here in town. But he reached out to us, we visit with him. If you come to the tap room, you see his paintings hanging up. But we worked with him on a couple cans. Let's see, I've got the beer berry.
Oh, I love that one.
And then the Mexican lager. So we used his art, presented it a little bit different on both, but
yeah, and those are regular large format paintings, like the donkey and the bear. They weren't at all designed to be anything on a beer label. They were just art that he did. They're paintings or whatever.
So
right?
Yes, they were part of a series of paintings he did. And it was like, man, the bear is hanging up in the back of the tap room right now.
Very cool.
But when we had it open for festivals and stuff, it's huge. I think it's 5 feet by 4 feet or something. So it's a very large format painting. And he actually had it made into stickers So he digitized the bear for us. And then I wish I would have printed out my kind of different versions. But he sat down with me and I had the background set up and I had the purple, I think, up top and the black down below, or it was a different color. And, you know, sitting down with another artist or an artist that isn't staring at this all the time, it's great to collaborate with them, because he was like, how about if you flip those colors and then it'll be more like the night sky, and the contrast between the bear will make it stand out a little bit more. And it was just overall much more successful to have his input on it again, with Rosalie, with Mike. It's a lot of fun to have creative minds kind of
Working together.
seeing what you're working with.
Yeah, you know, us beer geeks, we spend a lot of time talking about collaborations in beer making. You know, we're all into that and love it. But what we don't sometimes realize, there's a lot of collaborating in that art world, you know, for those
sure.
people. That's
Absolutely.
really cool.
Well,
Yes.
hey, Brian, will you tell me, where did you get your motivation for some of your cans? Give us some specific examples, maybe something from Chestnut and something from Abolitionist.
Yeah, well, okay, I can give two pretty specific examples, I suppose. Just pull up the old hat can
Halleck.
here.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of tells the story of Chestnut, sort of. When Bill was brewing this beer, the first off, he lived on this road called Halleck Road that's a little bit south of Morgantown, and it is one of the twistiest, gnarliest roads. He lived up on a hill in a little brown house, and the road is twisty as hell and came down out of the mountains. And that was kind of all it took for that one. I was like, all right, we'll just do a little house up on a hill, and that'll be that. The HOPTION is another can. We're about to do the full labels of these too, which I'm really excited about.
And that's your best HOPTION.
Your best option, yes.
It's another IPA.
Your best.
Well, it is an IPA, I think. Yeah.
Hold that still so we can see it.
Oh. Your best HOPTION, and it's
Nice.
It's pretty detailed. I don't know if you can really like.
Oh yeah, you can
Get a
definitely
lot
see
of
the
that.
Well,
detail.
we'll throw a better still picture up of that label.
Yeah, I think
for
that's
people.
that one.
Yeah.
But Bill, he's a huge nerd. He's a big old nerd.
Yeah.
And so we made like a kind of wizard barbarian, you know, cave monster thing.
which suits him.
Yeah, it totally suits him. So it's like on a case by case basis of just like, what conversation are we having? How do we feel about the beer? I know that Halleck label was definitely, I just thought about the fact that he was driving that road like all the freaking time. And I was like, man, got to put this boy in a little truck with some kegs in it and have him driving down that road.
You know, I didn't know that was his house up there, because I went to that house where he had his little brewery set up.
The little brown house, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that label encompassed all that. That is so cool. I didn't know that. That's good to know.
What that is, yeah.
Well, how about Abolitionist? Do you have some art from them? If not, we have some still art that we can insert.
I don't have any of their stuff here, unfortunately.
Blue and gold.
Okay.
Well, the blue and golden delicious. Man, did we even talk about that, or did I just do that?
That's a cool piece of art.
Sometimes,
It is, yeah.
Sometimes Michael just throw an idea at me, and I'm like, oh boy, I don't know if that's gonna work. But then like try to find a way to make it work. I think the blue and golden delicious, the number one thing that he wanted was an apple and blueberries. And that was about it. He's like, just
All right.
as long as there's.
I like what you did with them.
I mean, I made him into a beard, and it looked extreme. The first version was just a beard made out of blueberries. It did not look cool. It looked weird.
Trial and error.
That happens a lot.
It does, I'm sure.
And be like, I don't know.
Well, that kind of brings me to my next question, Brian. When you're working with two different West Virginia breweries,
Sure.
How do you keep the look and feel unique for each, yet stay within your design strengths?
Well, I think, oh man, I'm like I don't know a cool way to phrase this. Wife and mistress is not a cool way.
It doesn't need to be cool. We just want facts.
I love Chestnut. They're my jam. Bill's my dude. I go nuts on their labels, and he also like lets me do that. He's like, here's what we're gonna do. You know, this is what we're thinking, and I'll go crazy, and it'll take me months to get one of those done. Months and months sometimes. The HOPTION took like almost a year, but I decided for Abolitionist, I wanted to have a bit of a more kind of straightforward, just like simplistic, cell shaded, like kind of animation style approach to what I was doing with them. And I can bang those out pretty quick, actually, because of that.
Keeps it distinct.
So yeah, I do not want Abolitionists to look like Chestnut, and vice versa. So I'm trying to do Abolitionists a little bit more quick and dirty, and Chestnut I just take an immense amount of time on and get real weird with the little details and stuff.
Okay, well,
I mean, I guess that's the long and short of it, really.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine.
But spoiler, I have worked for 3 West Virginia breweries.
Oh.
I also designed stuff for North End Tavern up in.
We love Roadie's Red.
Yeah, that Roadie's Red, man. That was right. That was a long time ago, but
yeah,
I did several of their beers as well.
Well, beyond the fact that it's obviously a paying gig, why would an artist want to see their work on a beer label? Are there benefits beyond the initial paycheck for you guys?
Amber?
Well,
well,
Amber works for the brewery. You know, it's different for her.
For me, I'm trying to get doing what we can to sell the beer. But
that's true.
I will say, I think, working with the artists that we've worked with, again, it's getting awareness to other people about their art. So, like Mike Doig's a huge advocate about just community outreach and, getting art out in the community and stuff. So he was very just kind of, whatever I have that you like, you can use. If you have any questions, if you want me to brainstorm with you, I'm happy to do it. It's, and I just love his work. So it was kind of like, can I please?
Yes. Oh, sure. Yeah.
So, but a lot of it is, and people recognize his work too. So people that might not have been customers, but are fans of the artist's work.
And recognize it on your can. Yeah.
Correct.
So,
right.
So Brian, do you also think it's sort of a billboard for your creative abilities? If people see it on a can, they'll say, who did that can? I want to hire that artist to do my whatever business thing, that I need. Yeah.
I think first off, I love beer. And I just get a huge kick out of holding.
It probably works for beer then, right?
Out of just like, hey, what's up? Having my art on a label, I think is like a dream come true. Especially once we started doing like these full, the full scale boys, I was just like blown away by how cool that was. So for me, it's a little bit, it's a lot of just personal gratification of like, yes, I did a beer label. This rules. I can go buy it at a place. But yeah, secondly, the other part comes in where people are like, I love this. Who did this? And it's me. So
yeah. Well,
that's kind of
that brings me to like the brewery itself. So when a brewery has a need for a new label, as far as art goes, how does that process start? Does the brewery say, here's a picture I have in mind, and the artist just provides an interpretation of the brewer's idea, or does the artist typically get more freedom as far as coming up with a complete look and feel of the label? What do you think? Or tell me how that works or has worked for you.
I mean, I know how it works for me.
Well, we want to know from both of you, of course.
I mean, for me, it starts with the name most of the time, and we're just like, what can we do with this name?
But
So
you're
you're
given the freedom.
Oh yeah. It's
But you're given the name of the beer. I mean, the brewer will probably have a name that they've already decided this beer is going to be called this.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like
But they
every time I'm hanging out with Bill or Josh or Jeremy, they're just like, "Hey man, we're working on this one called this thing," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right." And as soon as you hear that name, you can kind of your brain kind of starts like germinating and
All right.
and churning and thinking of what it could possibly be. Yeah.
So they come to you then with the name, but not necessarily a picture in their mind. Like you have the freedom to create what you see from that name.
I think sometimes it's a little bit of both. Like I said, Mike from Abolitionist, for almost everything we've done together, he has a pretty strong idea from the get-go.
Okay, so it varies then, which I would
Yeah.
expect.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
a lot of times I'm like, man, how am I going to make this happen?
Yeah.
It's a pretty weird idea. But, sometimes you draw a big old butt made out of hops, and that's
Oh, I saw that one. I liked it.
Yeah, that was nice. All right, well,
Pretty
Amber,
proud
what's your opinion on that
Just
based on
say-
your role? And
Our process is a little bit different.
Yeah.
So let's see, I can give examples. So for some of the beers, it's Matt, my brother, is like, oh, we're working on, this sour. We're tweaking the recipe, but we should have it out and about, beginning of this month, and it might be 6 weeks away. And the lead time on the wrap cans is 5 weeks. So
Oh, wow. Rush.
hurry
You're
up.
not under the gun or anything, are you?
No, it's nice to have in-house when you're working on a schedule like that. I loved how Brian said he had he gets like a year to work on some of these, because that would be a lovely time for him. But again, I get to go back and tweak things. So, but then sometimes it's just the beer style or the ingredients that I get. We don't have a name for it yet. I get to help with the naming sometimes. So yeah, mine's definitely different, where I'm aware of what's brewing or kind of the styles we're thinking of putting out. And, sometimes I get to contribute to that as well. So like, I'll take the
Awesome.
River Cruiser.
Oh, yeah.
but I
Coming
love
out with
Dragonflies.
Dragonfly.
Yes.
And that is
I haven't had that beer yet, though.
that's a goza flavored with what, cucumber and
Cucumber
And
and
dragon.
dragon fruit.
dragon. What a
I
combination.
really want to try that one.
So for that one, I got the cucumber and dragon fruit. That's what we were gonna make it with. Like they had the flavor profile kind of figured out, and then it was kind of, we don't have a name for it. So it was thinking like, okay, dragon fruit and cucumber, to combine those images or something, that would be a little difficult. But dragon fruit, thinking dragonfly.
Yeah.
The dragonfly is called a river cruiser sometimes. And this was a warm weather release beer. So we released it last year. I think it was end of summer. But then it made me think of like being on the river, and I hide something in every can. So
Interesting.
the thing hidden in the river cruiser can is a little kayaker. So
Oh, cool.
thinking of like cruising down the river in a kayak kind of. So sometimes we have the name, like somebody will come up with a name, whether it's one of Matt, Sam, Ashley, or if it's Chris, our brewer, or if somebody, sometimes we have names rolling around in our heads. Sometimes we just have the style of beer. So it just depends. Like our Lager Joe, my grandfather's name was Joseph, and he was a logger. He was a lumberman.
Nice.
So it's actually his profile that's on our can.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, yeah, that is
So-
cool.
That's awesome.
But it's like,
Cool,
all right, we do Lager Joe. I know I want to use a picture of Jaju somewhere or somehow, and I hid a little B-24 bomber because he's a World War II vet. So he did B24 emissions. So there's a little story to all the cans, but it'd take all night to tell them. So
Hint, look for the hidden images.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look for these Easter eggs. I didn't know these cans had
that's
Easter eggs.
awesome.
Yeah, I
That's
love
cool.
it. I love it.
Yeah.
So how important is it, the buzz factor on a hot beer label? I mean, that's going to create a lot of attention, a lot of social media comments. I mean, I see it all the time. People see a new can come out or a label, they're just like going, wow, that is so cool. And they want to post it and, you know, put it up on Facebook and Instagram and everywhere. How important is that to you guys? I mean, and that kind of buzz that a label creates.
Amber, do you want me to take this one or do you want to take this one?
go for it, right?
I mean, okay, so obviously, you want the label to appeal to people. I mean, obviously, you want it to be, you want people to like it because that's your mission for the brewery is to make that appealing. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, any kind of buzz that you can get off a label is incredible. And really, anytime you hear any feedback from somebody where they're like, you know, I love that, or if they find it appealing, you're like, I did my job well, and I am happy about that, because I mean, that's what gets somebody to pull one off the shelf, right? If it's boring and bland, they're gonna pass it by, and if it's got a little bit of pop to it, they're gonna maybe grab it and check it out. And recognizability is huge. So if you make your labels unique and appealing in that way, people aren't going to forget them. They're going to be like, oh, that's the beer with the guy in the Volkswagen truck in the hill and stuff. Like that's delicious. So, I mean, that's the goal, is to give people something to identify with, and something that they want to pull off the shelf and that they have a positive feeling about. Mm-hmm. And then they know that there's delicious beer in that can. That's also very important.
Well, that helps. But I think I've bought beer not even knowing whether it would be good or whatever, just because I really love the can.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Totally.
I was going to say, yeah. And that's, if I can add,
yes.
Coming from the business side of things and actually having some stake in the brewery, a lot of what I was thinking was, when somebody goes to the beer cooler at a retail establishment, what is going to make them gravitate to our beer versus anybody else's? And,
mm-hmm.
With all the craft beers that are out there now, and there are, 20 different IPAs,
right?
What's gonna catch their eye? That was the big thing with like our 3 descriptor words that we used to do we have on our core brands, is kind of grab them, kind of make it big enough that they can read it from further away, and try to grab them with, the flavor profiles, or and make it very identifiable that this is an IPA. So if somebody goes to the store and they're like, I want an IPA, if you put it in teeny tiny font, that's going to be hard to but if somebody doesn't know, oh, my friend told me to just pick up some IPA, and they see a big IPA right there, hopefully they might be reaching for that one. So again, it's getting people to enjoy, marketing craft beer, and then getting them to pick yours out of the hundreds of options out there. Especially if they're visiting and they haven't been to West Virginia before, they don't know anything about the West Virginia craft beer market, and they go into a store and because when I visit, I usually try local things.
Yep.
So I just want to be like, okay, here are the West Virginia beers. Okay, out of all of these, which one do I pick? Or, if I go to a different state, I try to pick something that was made there and see what they have to offer. So,
right, you want to stand out. I'm sure that high level graphic art service. It can be expensive, especially for a small brewery. And that's why many, I think, small breweries don't have high level graphic arts, at least all of the time. So what I'd like to delve into is how much does it cost to take a label from concept to final design if a brewery uses an outside agency to work on this? How much, like, do they have to budget? Is there a range? Is there a time involved for design? You know, there's so many beer labels that have obviously the legal requirements that are involved, the health warnings, the brewery address, the type size, etc. The list goes on. But how does this complicate the design process exactly, just all around? If you can give me kind of a summarized answer, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Amber. I'm looking at you.
Okay.
And then we'll go to Brian.
I was gonna say I can share my salary, and that's pretty much.
Well, we don't need to be that
So,
specific.
That's how much it costs right there.
You think of right. So doing it in house is a savings. So on our collaborative cans with the other artists,
Sure.
we've done it per piece, and then by however many we sell, they get a percentage. So like Rosalie was so many cents a can produced, and then with Mike, it was if we sold all these, and his was he had a health concern, so he told us to use his images or work with him, and he just let us use them. But then he
Right.
had some health issues, so we took a percentage of the sales from that can and gave that to him to help with those costs.
Did they have a time constraint as well? He obviously didn't, but earlier with the Monongalia map, was there a certain time constraint that you were working under?
Yeah, so we knew we were gonna do the Mon IPA release this summer, and working with Rosalie, it was, I mean, she was very open with communication. I mean, she knew she was going to draw the map. She was sketching it up and stuff. And she gave me a time frame that, you know, I should have the map finalized by May. So we knew to not brew the beer. And this was one that was kind of like, we brewed the beer based on
When the
kind of
label,
the final artwork. So it,
right,
Wow.
right.
we
that
do
makes
things
sense. Yeah.
differently, and so, but we
Wow.
did have the flexibility to coordinate that schedule, and then to do and we did a release party that was kind of small because of everything with the COVID requirements, but she
Right.
came in and she brought some of our artwork, and it was kind of a show and sale for her as well. So it worked out really well because it brought the people that she knew to come and see her artwork, and then it brought our customers out. So it was, hopefully it was beneficial for both. And then she said, you know, we can use the image, since we're doing it by piece with her. If we do reorder the cans, it's already an established price. So
Oh, nice. Yeah.
so it works really nice, because if it's a popular beer and we
Sure.
decide to release it again,
You have that baseline.
And yeah, I guess
so-
I would say, I would ask Amber that price you're able to negotiate with someone like a West Virginia illustrator, Rosalie Hazlett, those are not deterrents for you wanting to use a local artist. I mean, they're not so high. Those costs are within the affordable range that beer can, you know, cover.
Right. So yeah, we see, we kind of establish what price we want to sell it to in the market, figure out distributor pricing, and then we see there is a cost for packaging and stuff. So we try to roll it into that, and our overhead will be or our overall profit will be less. But again, the more beer we sell, the more we can, you know, share with the artist, or
Sure.
so if because their art is great, we'll probably sell more. So hopefully
It works. It helps. It benefits everyone.
right.
Yeah. Well, Brian, how about your side from what you see as a, concept to design, as the process and the cost and the amount of time it takes? How does that work for you?
Oh boy. I think I have to say that as far as Chestnut is concerned, I love working with them because Bill gives me carte blanche. He's just like, take your time, it'll get done eventually.
Right.
And I work really well. I always tell people I work about 99% like in my brain, and then 1% is just getting it done. Like by the time I design something and I do something, I already know exactly what it's going to look like because I kind of have it already. I can see it. That sounds
You can visualize it. Sure.
Yeah, that sounds really weird, but I know exactly what it will look like. So, I mean, that process can take some time, but I think when you get down to kind of the brass tacks of like, what is this going to cost, or, I just factor in my time more or less, like, as how much actual work went into this. And, I mean, that's pretty much how it all goes, honestly. That's
does the contract like that for you include, as Amber was talking about earlier, like if future cans, is it all inclusive?
It does not. I'm kind of like, here it is, it's yours now. I just kind of
you sell okay.
But I also I mean, to touch on what we were talking about earlier, I also feel that I do benefit from it just being out there.
Right. Well, sure, absolutely.
Because it comes back in these different unexpected ways when you're the guy or you're the girl, they're like, oh, you did this, and it comes back.
Well, sure, of course.
Does. And also, I mean, when you're working with a smaller brewery, I don't want to try to overcharge. I'm there for them, like, honestly. And I think, West Virginia is not a kingpin of the craft beer market yet.
Yet.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Big emphasis on yet, because I think we produce some of the best beer ever.
Sure.
But we're building. We're laying the foundation right now, and I am just pleased as punch to be a part of that. So,
Agreed.
So I'm not trying to get crazy and overcharge people.
Sure.
I'm just trying to be like, this is my time and this is what it's worth, and let's make some labels and let's make them look good like this.
Yeah, and it's great to hear the diversity between a contract artist versus a brewery employee, and also obviously a person that has a stake of interest in the brewery. Having said that, Amber, what are some common options that breweries have for getting a label manufactured or printed, and how do you decide which to use?
So we've used 3 different ways of labeling a can. So we've had direct print to the metal of the can. We've had wrapped cans, which is like a thin plastic film.
Right.
And then we've had sticker labels, so hand applied, large stickers that kind of cover the can. So that's like the all together, which was a collaboration on a label as well as a beer. So, but and so with each format, there are different challenges or different options to have kind of creative,
right?
How do you handle this medium? So printed directly on metal, you're always going to have this kind of metallic finish. And the printed cans, you can only have, at least with our manufacturer, 6 colors, including black and white. So with the UPC.
Oh.
So, and then I think I mentioned earlier, the viscosity in the inks are sometimes a problem. So some colors aren't achievable.
Right.
But that's a fun challenge.
Does that mean 6 colors altogether? You can only have 6 on there?
All together, you can only have 6 colors.
And that's for direct printing on the aluminum can.
Correct.
Which you
With
have
the
to also
same
buy by the
food.
truckload or something. I mean, it's not
Exactly. So, and then like when
That's
you were talking,
interesting. Wow.
when you were talking about cost earlier, another thing with that, so they have to run their printers. To get a proof like this, where they send you the flat can, that's about $1,250. I think last time we had a can proofed. So if you kind of mess up that design, or you don't have it quite right, or you put the wrong UPC on it, it's kind of an expensive process to
Oh
actually
boy. Yeah, that sure
Yeah.
is.
go back and fix. So, but then with the wrapped cans, so I'll use, where did I put my River Cruiser can? So River Cruiser is a wrapped can. I actually cut one off. So you have the print on the plastic film, and then you have the option of adding a white on the back. I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can. No,
Mhm.
you can see it.
You can print it, have it printed color on clear. So that's where the iridescence in the dragonfly comes from versus the solid green.
Oh.
And then
That's
you can
cool.
just have it,
As we all shake our heads, like yeah.
you can have it clear with no color. So then the silver of the can comes through.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So you almost have 3 layers that you have to think about when you're doing a 2-dimensional design.
Right.
But it's awesome too, because you have this different medium
Yeah.
to experiment with. So you can actually, if you have any of our wrap cans, cut it off and you can see which ones are white printed on the background, so they come through as a solid, what's metallic. So thinking about that while you're doing the can design is, it's a fun
Challenging.
challenge sometimes.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So when Brian was talking about, he has these ideas in his head and he knows exactly what it's gonna, or he has an idea of what it's gonna look like in his head, transferring that to the beer can medium is a lot of fun. There's a lot of options that you don't necessarily have in regular 2-dimensional,
Just a
3-dimensional
printed.
art.
Yeah.
So it's for people that haven't thought about, if there are artists out there that haven't thought about package design, that is something that, like, the more I get into it or the more I think about it, the more exciting it is. And
Sure.
the possibilities out there, because they can also do the matte printed films versus the glossy. So you have all these
Wow.
kind of fun options and finishes to work with. So
I mean, it sounds almost as complex as like what goes into the beer, all the ingredients and the processes
It
of
does.
brewing. It really
It
is.
definitely does.
We don't
We're
think
talking
about that.
ink viscosity here, so
Yeah.
well,
pretty
when my
complicated stuff.
business partners are asking me, Amber, when are you going to be done with this can design? I'll remind them that there's a lot to think about.
Well,
Yeah,
sure.
There is. I continually, just the other day, I mean, I saw a new beer can label from a Jackie O's brewery. Brian, I think you might know Bryn Parrott.
Yeah, she's here in Morgantown. One of
Yeah,
the
in Morgantown.
great artists. Absolutely.
Yeah, she's doing those labels for Jackie O's. I mean, her
They're
work,
amazing.
which is like kind of transferred from a woodcut design.
She works
tattoo
primarily
design.
with wood cuts. Yes.
Yeah, it's just beautiful what she does. Tell me a little bit about how you know her. Are you like what she's been up to?
Just Deerjerk.com. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that might be her primary.
Yeah, it's Deer Jerk. It is. That's her.
Yeah. She makes
handle.
amazing woodcuts and just sells the woodcut itself instead. I mean, she'll bang out some prints every now and then, but yeah, I have one in my living room actually.
But I think what she shows is that right here in West Virginia, we have an illustrator, designer that's probably making good money on those designs, because Jackie O's, when they print those cans, they're doing large volumes of cans. I mean, she just redesigned the Chomolungma, which is their brown ale. But that's like one of their big brands that's out all over Ohio in stores. This is not like a little specialty release. These are big volume craft beers. And I'm sure
It's
that
brilliant work, man.
she's
It really
compensated for those designs well, I would think.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And also they have a bunch of, I've been to Jackie O's in Athens, and they have a bunch of her work hanging up in there, which is so cool for like the cohesion of the art. It's really awesome.
Yeah, that's true. So, Amber, we mentioned earlier the Rosalie Hazlett that you had used with the Monongahela National Forest art and all that, the map that she did that you put on the can. And, she also did that one I showed earlier with a Pawpaw Pride for Weathered Ground. And Weathered Ground's another brewery that's used multiple local artists for their work. They've, certainly paid her to do the Pawpaw Pride art. But one of their kind of signature stuff in a way for some of their biggest selling products, which are the Haggard IPA series, that little cartoonish monster character that's on that label, designed by Andrew Mullins of ABM Art Studios in Pineville, West Virginia. I believe he lives in Pineville, Southern West Virginia guy. But yeah, he's also done other, like the Scrappy beer labels. They've just come out with a new Scrappy can this week or last week, whatever. More Scrappy than Scrappy. He's done those art labels. Again, they're those little cartoonish monster series. I just think all that stuff is just exciting to me to see that collaboration going on.
I like those. So brilliantstream.com lists 16 West Virginia breweries that now can their beer, and a couple more are, of course, doing bottling. These breweries are coming out with new beers all of the time, which would obviously mean that they may have a need for some graphic art design and maybe need some art services for their labels. How would an interested artist get involved in something like that for these breweries?
Speaking from the brewery side of things, I would reach out to the brewery, especially if if your style kind of goes with their image, or you want to attempt to do that, definitely reach out. And I mean, we're happy to entertain if anybody's interested. Go ahead and reach out to us. Also, I mean, that was the thing. I mean, I didn't think about it till after I went through school and stuff. But I think I shared that I'm an interior designer by degree,
Right.
and I practiced for 13 years in commercial interiors. But I went into interior design because I loved art and being creative, but I wanted to be able to make a living,
Of course.
art, and not and okay, if nobody ever liked my paintings, I didn't want to depend on that. So something I didn't think about when I was going through school was package design, and especially with craft breweries, a lot of the beverage companies, a lot of these markets where and I think Brian could probably speak to this as well, because with his t-shirt designs, and I mean, it's almost limitless, but when you're an artist in school, like high school maybe, and you love to paint, you're not necessarily thinking, how can this painting become a marketable
Item.
skill? So
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right, so-
They might actually be thinking about that nowadays. I'm not gonna lie.
I would have I feel like there's a lot more creativity out there, or things that were mass produced are now being produced on a smaller scale.
Yep.
And with that, because you'll always have your classic packaged items that they haven't changed in years, or they've only been tweaked, and they have a marketing company that works specifically for them. But
Right.
there are all these smaller brands and smaller companies that, the person that started it up might not have a background in graphic design. So there's those opportunities out there.
Yeah, I'm thinking that so many of our local breweries, they're small, but as they grow and they start to produce these specialty, and they're getting into canning, they don't have a background in graphics, and they have to have some help. And maybe it's somebody in their family helps them, maybe not. But I mean, I think artists should reach out to all these breweries that are canning
Sure.
now, because that's a
Sure.
great opportunity, I would think, even if it's just a place to break in and get started,
We're an introverted bunch. It makes it difficult.
Well, which is why it's a good question, because maybe they're wondering.
You got to order a
if
keg. Meet a guy in a parking lot.
Yeah, you got to drink beer. That's for sure.
That's how it works.
Right, drink the product.
But yeah, I
Well-
mean, with the local arts that are out there, also, like, if I go to a gallery and I see something I like, or it's maybe not a gallery, it might be, you go to a lot of the coffee shops and stuff. We've got Tip Top in town. They always feature local artists, and, you catch their name if,
Sure.
this looks like something you would like, oh, this would translate great on a can. Like, let's see if that works out. So,
Which makes me think of craft beer fans. Like, how can we support these artists and encourage them?
Just do a little digging, really.
Brian's like, get a keg, take it to the parking lot.
That's my answer to everything. Get a keg. No, just do a little digging, and sometimes it's as simple as their signature will be on the label, and sometimes it's as simple as looking up the brewery's social media or whatever. And a lot of the times, when they're producing labels or they're releasing a beer, they'll be like, and here's who did the art. I think a lot of the times, if you just want to support that artist, just follow their social media,
Agreed.
like look out for what they're doing.
Sure.
I mean, my whole social media thing, that's exactly how I operate. When I see somebody whose work I like, I'm like, follow, and I get what they're doing. I get to see what they're doing, what they're producing. And honestly, we're in wild, quarantine times right now. I have bought more art and more music than I ever have in my life during this quarantine, because I'm just seeing people producing stuff, and I'm like, I'm going to follow this guy. I'm going to see what they're making. I mean, it's easier now than it has ever been. Ever.
Oh yeah, technology is
You
incredible.
don't see a painting on the wall and you're like, I wonder who did that. Now you can just be like, boop, Google will figure it out for you.
Right.
That's who did it.
Right.
And
sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say,
It's running out of steam.
with Rosalie's map that she did, she offers several different trail maps as prints, so as art prints. So with her design, we actually included like her Instagram account on the can.
Little
So-
marketing.
So
Marketing.
if you like the trail map, it's kind of tiny on the can. But if you like this trail map, and then she did one for like Blackwater Falls and Canadian Valley and stuff. So we wanted to make sure if you like that and you wanted it in a larger readable format, you could actually access that. So
Yeah.
if you like the look of the can, you could have that map on your wall. So
And that's cool. You included her social media.
yes,
That's awesome.
yes.
Yeah.
So
That's
easy
cool.
to find, and then you get to see what other work she has. I mean, it's not just specific, especially since that was a collaboration where she was developing a map that she does trail maps, and she was
Right.
working on it, and she reached out to us and said, I'd love to work with you on this. This is what I'm working on. And she sent examples of her other trail maps, and I was like, this would look great. It's right up our alley with like our image and kind of what especially with Elkins and being in kind of the right
Oh,
on
yeah.
the edge of the Monongahela National
Yeah.
Forest. It made sense to
So, Brian, you have some other products. We mentioned some of the T-shirts and hats and things. Tell a little bit more about that as we get ready to wrap this up.
Well, I mean, I have my apparel company, which is madeinwv.com. I got real tired of not having cool West Virginia shirts, so I decided to make some of my own about
Hey,
5
that's the
years
one way to
ago.
deal with it.
Well, I think one thing I kind of think is like a backwards beer name in a way that came from your Bury Me in West Virginia. And I don't have a picture of your shirt,
Oh yeah.
but that became a beer name for Chestnut Brew Works. Then Yeah, we'll put that up. Bury Me in West Virginia. That was a design you've used on what, T-shirts and other things, and
Yep.
stickers, obviously. So
Yeah, that's
now
right.
in Chestnut, liked that so much, Bill decided he would call a beer, a fruited beer, Berry, Berry, Bury Me in West Virginia.
Trying to figure if I have one around.
Yeah, but that we have we have that label up now. It's like it's showing that label, but it's fun to see that kind of interaction in it and how it goes both ways. That the art inspires the beer inspires the art.
That's a real full circle situation, really, because I mean, at this point, we've known each other for so long, and you know, he was like, could I do this? And I was like, yeah, of course you can do this. Of course, this is not muddling the brand or like brand confusion or anything. I'm like, this is we both benefit, baby. We're good. Like,
Sure, yeah.
yeah, I felt great about it, and I think it's funny and brilliant. And that beer is a crispy summertime beer. Oh, so good. On my river trips this summer, that's what I was drinking. That Bury Me all day.
Well, we love what you guys do. Brian Pickens
We do.
at madeinwv.com, Amber Kwasniewski at Big Timber Brewing Company. We thank you for joining us today on West Virginia Beer Roads.
Absolutely. Thank you both for joining us. Cheers, you guys.
And to
Cheers.
everyone listening in, go out and look for some of these West Virginia beers with creative, beautiful labels that are done by our local artists. It'll definitely bring a little extra pleasure to your craft beer experience, no doubt about it.